everyone. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and welcome to another episode of Women of Her Story, a podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making their mark on our society. Please welcome my co-host, as always, Buzzworther Bees.
Buzz, buzz, buzz. How do you do?
How's your day been so far, Buzz?
Oh, it's just buzzing by. I'm having a great day. How are you doing?
We just spent, an hour and a half with some technical difficulties, but we're here. Everything's good.
Absolutely.
Just a little bit of a heads up, you guys. We will be taking next week, the week of September 6th, off. But don't fear, we will be right back to our usual schedule on September 15th. If you need some extra Her Story content to tide you over, follow our social media. We have all kinds of amazing stuff going on there and on our website, where we list all of our collaborations and really cool interactive stuff.
Yes, please keep up with us. Stay updated with the news bits and yeah.
Yeah. Also, today we launch our merch campaign again. So for the whole month of September, we are going to be selling our Her Story shirts. What else? Some beanies, jackets, all kinds of fun stuff. So head over there to our bonfire site. It'll be linked through our website. Wow, I'm uhing a lot. It's fine. It's late. Don't worry about it. Once again, 20% of all the profits will be donated to the Henry Street Settlement in New York City.
It's for a good cause. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Support women. Do what you can.
Absolutely. And then also, just so you guys know, the rest of the profits will be going right back into the podcast for new equipment, for our host website, all of that stuff.
Future episodes. Just all these
it keeps us
projects
going.
that we have in the woodwork.
Ooh, in the woodwork, Buzz.
Mm-hmm. SAT word.
Well, are you ready for today's Her Story lesson?
Let's begin.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I'll show myself out.
I hate you.
Yeah, I'll leave.
Beate Sirota Gordon was born on October 25th, 1923 in Vienna, Austria, to parents Leo Sirota and Augustine Sirota. At the age of 5, her family moved to Japan for what was supposed to be only a 6-month stay that turned into a move that lasted over a decade. Her father, a Ukrainian Jewish man who fled war-torn Russia, was a famed pianist and composer. He had been offered a job teaching at the Imperial Academy of Music, now known as the Tokyo University of the Arts. So off the family went. Beate received her education at a German school for 6 years until the school became, quote, too Nazi for her parents' liking.
Oh.
Yeah. At age 12, she was moved to one of the American schools in Tokyo. In 1939, just before her 16th birthday, she left for college. Which, okay, Doogie Howser, what?
Yeah, smart cookie.
Definitely. Beate was studying to receive a degree in modern languages at Mills College in Oakland, California. So she is just globe-trotting. Just 2 years into her life in the United States, there was an attack on Pearl Harbor. This made it virtually impossible to contact Japan, where her parents were still residing.
Oh, man.
I know.
Must have been nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. In 1943, she received her degree and then 2 years later became a naturalized citizen in January of 1945. She knew that she had to do whatever it took to make contact with her parents if they were even still alive. At this point, it's been almost 5 years since she was able to contact them. Can you imagine?
I was just thinking, I can't imagine going more than 6 months without, I don't know. I can't imagine
almost 5 years. And not even knowing if they're alive. Not even knowing if they're alive.
That must have been painful.
Mm-hmm. Well, using her language skills, fluent in Japanese, English, German, French, and Russian, she began working for the U.S. government in San Francisco. Her job was to monitor overseas radio signals during World War II. She was also tasked with sending messages encouraging the Japanese to surrender. If you're wondering how a woman fresh out of college has been hired to this position, she was one of 64 Caucasian people fluent in Japanese at the time in the entirety of the United States.
That is a feat.
That is
very
insane.
impressive. I'm glad that she took the initiative to do that.
Mm-hmm. The war ended in 1945, and she landed a job as an interpreter and translator with the General Headquarters of the Allied Forces, under the command of U.S. General Douglas MacArthur, who oversaw the occupation of Japan. On Christmas Eve, 1945, Beate was the first civilian woman to arrive in post-war Japan. The other 30 passengers on the plane that she took were military men. Before landing, the plane circled the airport a few times to showcase the destruction and the Allied victory. She remembers, quote, "The soldiers on the plane whistled and flocked to the windows, exulting openly, but I felt numb with shock. Japan had been her home, and she was back, but it wasn't the same at all."
It's such a different, I'm sure it invoked a different
All
feeling
kinds of
for
craziness,
her
yeah.
that just didn't feel just the same that she did before.
She still had to find her family, and boy, did it not feel like Christmas Eve. The trip itself was 30 hours long. From New York City to San Diego to Hawaii to Johnston Island to Guam and finally to Atsugi.
I can't even be on a flight for more than like 4 or 5 hours without panicking. So, what is that, like a little over a day of traveling?
That's like, yeah,
30
a
hours.
day, yeah, a day and 6 hours.
Ugh. More power to them. That is, that's impressive.
She remembered seeing high-ranking Japanese military men at the base they landed at. Quote, "One of them caught my eye. Having grown up as a woman in Japan, I automatically looked down. But his response was to bow deeply. It seemed unthinkable, a Japanese serviceman deferring to me, a 22-year-old Caucasian woman. For the second time, I felt a stab of dismay at the totality of Japan's defeat." She was finally able to locate her family's home, and heartbreak set in. There was only one single charred pillar left. Quote, "When we neared my old neighborhood, the atmosphere changed. There were a few buildings left standing, but I could see no private homes. I got out of the car at Nogi Shrine and just stood there for 2 or 3 minutes looking down the hill in confusion. Now the houses were simply gone. The war had damaged not just stones and mortar, but the very stuff of people's memories. Where was my friend's house? Was the street that led the school still there? What about the shopkeeper?" But she didn't lose hope. Her father was famous, after all. Someone was bound to have known what happened, and if her family was still alive.
Oh, that's so sad. I can't imagine.
Oh my gosh.
going
I have
that
chills
kind of
right now thinking of, like, if I were to go to my parents' home right now and it to just not be there.
Yeah. And all
not
the
have any
sentiment
answers.
that it brings back, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, just... She learned that they were in Karuizawa, Nagano. When she reunited with them, they were malnourished, and her father dwelt on the fate of his relatives in Europe. They were, after all, Jewish Russians. A few of their family members escaped, but a majority of them were arrested by the Nazis and sent to concentration camps. So this man, who he himself has been suffering greatly, is even further devastated by just the thought of his whole family just being gone.
It's so unfair.
Yeah. She was able to take care of her parents and continue with the mission she had been assigned by MacArthur. She says, quote, "I was afraid of General MacArthur and used to hide behind a pillar when he passed by. I was also too much in awe of our section, General Courtney Whitney, ever to take him up on something I remember him telling us on New Year's Eve. I want your reaction to every directive to the Japanese government prepared in this section. The junior officers are as well, if not better qualified to pass judgment on our moves as the high-ranking ones, including myself. I mean exactly what I say, and I look forward to the time when a lieutenant will barge into my office, bang on my desk, and say, 'God damn it, General such and such, a proposed directive is preposterous,' and you'd be out of your mind to ask General MacArthur to approve it."
Wow.
That's such a great leader to have.
Yeah.
That's like, no, I want literally every single officer's input in this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's someone that I'd want to be. I'd want to be led by. Mm-hmm. You know.
As the only female member of a committee tasked with drafting a new Japanese constitution,
Whoa.
she had her work cut out for her.
Okay, boss lady.
I know. Starting in February 1946, they had just 7 days to complete the Constitution.
Oh, they were up against the clock.
Beate, a 22-year-old, personally composed 2 major articles.
Hey.
One enshrined egalitarianism as a basic legal principle, and another improved the status of women in particular. At the start of the week, she commandeered a jeep to visit what libraries in Tokyo were left.
Oh my goodness.
She borrowed copies of as many different countries' constitutions as she could find. And after an obsessive 7 days with little sleep, she composed the following articles. Article 14. All of the people are equal under the law, and there shall be no discrimination in political, economical, or social relations because of race, creed, sex, social status, or family origin. Article 24. Marriages shall be based on the mutual consent of both sexes, and it shall be maintained through mutual cooperation with the equal rights of husband and wife as a basis. With regard to choice of spouse, property rights, inheritance, choice of domicile, divorce, and other matters pertaining to marriage and the family, laws shall be enacted from the standpoint of individual dignity and the essential equality of the sexes. Japanese women were historically treated like crap. They were property to be bought and sold on a whim, she says. She didn't say like crap, but yeah, I'm paraphrasing here. Carol Cluck, a professor of Japanese history at Columbia University, said, "It set a basis for a better and a more equal society. By just writing those things into the Constitution, our Constitution doesn't have any of those things." Beate Gordon intervened at a critical moment. And what kind of 22-year-old gets to write a constitution?
She's so cool.
But it's so real. Like, there's nothing about women in the Constitution and women's rights because women didn't write it. There were no women or minorities present in the room where it happened. So
once a week we do a Hamilton reference.
Gotta do it.
Yeah, if you haven't caught up with that. But yeah, no, that's impressive, and the fact that she was that young too just made it all the more, like badass.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah. In 1947, Major General Charles A. Willoughby.
Oh, you had me. I would have been like, what kind of last name is that?
Conducted a year-long investigation of leftist infiltration, and Beate was one of the targets. He tried to construct a case against her, charging her with advancing the communist cause with the new government of Japan. So apparently, equal rights for men and women is part of the communist agenda.
Just another way for a section of people to marginalize, another demographic. Like, clearly that's not her target. Like, he's just trying to stifle a movement that he knows is out of his control, and is trying to further prevent them from expanding.
Mm-hmm. And also everyone's afraid of communism. Yeah. So attaching that to equal rights for women makes it a villainous proposition.
When all they want is just for people to live better lives.
Yeah. Beate returned to the United States with her parents in 1948 and married Lieutenant Joseph Gordon the same year. He was the chief of the interpreter-translator team for the military intelligence section at the Allied Supreme Commander GHQ.
Well, that's a sentence.
So he was president for the negotiations on the Constitution. So they met there, and they're just like, we're good people.
We're cool.
We're on the same team here. Well, fast forward 6 years, and Beate became the director of student programs for the Japan Society in New York City.
Hey, there you go. Moving on up.
In this position, it was her job to provide career and job counseling to Japanese students in New York, one of which was Yoko Ono, and the two became lifelong friends.
Oh, boy.
Isn't that cool?
That's something.
Isn't that a weird...
That's
when
moment
we are
in history.
Right now. In 1958, she was appointed the Society's Director of Performing Arts. She worked with artists arranging exhibits and lecture demonstrations. She facilitated the first American visit of woodblock artist Shiko Munakata, one of Japan's foremost composers, Toshi Ichiyanagi. I'm trying, guys. And she introduced Suzushi Hanayagi to theater director Robert Wilson, and the two collaborated on the knee plays.
That's cool that she was able to get these two communities to come together like that.
Beate had studied ballet, modern, ethnic, and folk dance, as well as drama and piano in Tokyo and at Mills. Beate held this position while raising her two young children. She served in a similar capacity with the Asian Society, just on a more broader aspect. This would take her to some of the most remote places in Asia. She traveled in search of authentic performing artists, Balinese gamelan ensembles, Vietnamese puppeteers, Mongolian dancers. Some of the most remote places being Purulia in West Bengal, India, and Kuching in Sarawak, Malaysia. She wanted to bring these artists to universities, museums, and other cultural venues in New York and across the United States and Canada. In the early 60s, she was influential in bringing koto music to Americans by introducing composer Henry Cowell to Japanese koto player Kimio Eto.
She's such a good person for trying to introduce like this kind of culture into
especially like after the war, you know, it's something where she loved Japan, she loved being there and was so passionate about it. She wanted to share it, you know.
It's good that someone who's as educated as she was willing to help promote that too, you know. Bridge the gap.
Yeah. Henry Cowell wrote a concerto for koto and orchestra for Eto, which was presented by Leopold Stokowski and the Philadelphia Orchestra in New York, Philadelphia, and on tour. Beate produced the first Asian performers at the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts.
Whoa.
Yeah, she ended up producing over 39 tours by 34 companies from 16 countries.
She had a lot of good working relations. And she did so much too. My goodness.
They were seen by an estimated 1.5 million Americans in 400 cities and towns in 42 states.
You'd imagine too, she probably put on a lot of people who weren't initially interested in the arts. You know, like places that might not have gotten this kind of exposure to this culture. She definitely, you know, she did a good job with that.
Absolutely. She was bringing new ways of experiencing Asian performing arts to audiences throughout the country. This intensified the post-World War II Asian influence on American art, design, literature, and theater. Furthermore, she produced and hosted a series of 12 half-hour programs on the Japanese arts that was broadcast on New York's Channel 13.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was a commentator for 4-hour-long programs featuring traditional and popular music from Japan, China, India, and Thailand. This was broadcast on Channel 31 New York City Municipal Television Station.
Shouts out public access television. Shouts out New York City. Representation matters.
Through None Such Records' Explorer series, she was able to produce 8 albums featuring Asian music, and was on the panel of and a consultant for the dance program of the National Endowment for the Arts.
Oh, so she did it all.
She just does everything.
In the arts. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. She wore all the hats. Okay.
Wrote a constitution, also did these artsy things.
Yeah.
She was the associate editor in charge of the Asian dance section of the International Encyclopedia of Dance, published by Oxford University Press in February of 1998.
I mean, you only live once, right? If you only have one lifetime, you might as well just try to write a whole constitution and then create a whole
and introduce
a whole sort of artistic viewpoint to a demographic of people that haven't been introduced. Yeah.
She clearly loved Japan and Asia in general, but her involvement in developing Japan's constitution was concealed for decades. She feared the potential political ramification. As I mentioned earlier, someone had already launched an investigation into her for, communist agenda. The committee she was part of was a secret in the first place, as they had to come in and churn it out in a week under immense pressure. But later, she kept it hidden because she didn't want her youth and the fact that she was an American to become ammunition for the Japanese conservatives who want constitutional revision. Can you imagine them making changes on her 2 articles that are based on equality? Like, can you imagine that happening right now? People want that.
Especially if they found out, like, her identity, and then they would just go in and, like, alter that. That's absurd.
Yeah. By the 1990s, it became public knowledge. And she detailed her experience in her 1995 memoir, The Only Woman in the Room. I used her book for mostly all of this research. I could have honestly written an entire episode that was like an hour and a half long based of everything that just the specific constitutional writing. Like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Please read it. She's a great writer and her life is just insane. She lectured extensively in the US and Japan on her role in writing the Japanese Constitution. In 1998, Beate received the Order of the Sacred Treasure from the Japanese government. She received the American Dance Guild Award in 1978. What a weird contrast. Like, think about that. Yeah. Like, dance guilds, but also, like, great work on the Constitution.
I guess when you're that talented and good, that just
honestly
happens.
Yeah, she received 2 Dance on Camera Festival Awards in 1984 and 1985. She received an Obie Award for the introduction of Samul Nori to the United States in 1985. And in 1990, she received a Bessie Award for, quote, beating an ever-widening path between the cultures of East and West, and for understanding the essential creative dialect, tradition, and experimentation, and the fundamental partnership of artists involved in both.
I bet she was just so good in life, they just created new awards to give her to be like, we don't have anything to recognize for your talent for this because no one's ever done it before, so this is this award for you. Because no one's done it before you. Keep doing that.
Well,
like, that's so impressive.
I am just getting started because she received the Avon Grand.
How old is she at this point? Is she like 20?
She received the Avon Grand Award to Women's Award in 1997, the John D. Rockefeller Award from the Asian Cultural Council in 1997 as well, for, quote, recognition of your extraordinary contribution in introducing American scholars, artists, and general audiences to the performing arts of Asia and in increasing the American understanding and appreciation of Asian dance, theater, and music traditions.
Yeah, they definitely just created that one for her. I'm pretty sure she set the precedent when it comes to that sort of thing for this time period.
In 2005, she was awarded the Ryoko Akamatsu Award. She retired from directorship at the Asian Society in 1991 and was senior consultant for the performing arts until 1993. She received an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts degree from Mills College, her alma mater, in 1991.
Wow.
President's Medal from the College of the City of New York in 1992. An honorary Doctor of Law degree from Smith College in 2008. An honorary PhD from Mills College in 2011, where a collection of her papers resides. The Japanese television network Asahi Broadcasting Corporation produced a 90-minute documentary on her life that was first broadcast in Japan on May 22nd of 1993. A Japanese language bio, Christmas 1945, the biography of the woman who wrote the Equal Rights Clause of the Japanese Constitution, was published on October 20th, 1995. It just keeps piling on. The English version was published in March of 1998. But wait, just like an abrasive 90s infomercial, there's more. The play, A String of Pearls by James Mickey, was written about her life. It was performed by Seinen Gekiko in Tokyo in April of 1998.
Hey, you know what happens when you apply a little bit of pressure to some metal?
What?
You get a pearl.
What? Oh, because it's called...
Right, I'm sorry.
Get out.
Yeah, sorry.
The film, The Sirota Family and the 20th Century, was produced by Tomoko Fujiwara. It debuted in Paris in April of 2009. It is the story of her father's family and their flight from Europe into the diaspora. This is my favorite fact. Space. Okay? Space. Minor planet 5559, discovered by Eleanor Helen, was named after her. It was called Beate Gordon.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's how you know you've made it, when you have a planet named after you.
I know. All the space stuff is your favorite.
Oh, man. That's the height. That's the pinnacle of success.
That's the best. That's the best. Well, Beate Sirota Gordon died of pancreatic cancer on December 30th of 2012 at the age of 89.
I mean, she did so much.
So
oh my goodness.
much.
She accomplished so many great things, and she has such an impressive legacy.
Her last public statement was urging the peace and women's rights clauses of the Japanese Constitution be preserved. Her sweet husband had died just 4 months earlier at the age of 93. They lived very, very long lives together with children as well. A very lovely family. In a New York Times obituary published on January 1st, 2013, Marguerite Fox wrote, "Had her father not been a concert pianist of considerable renown, had she not been so skilled at foreign languages, and had she not been desperate to find her parents from whom she was separated during the war and whose fate she did not know for years, she never would have been thrust into her quiet, improbable role in world history, nor would she have been apt to embark on her later career as a prominent cultural impresario, one of the first people to bring traditional Asian performing arts audiences throughout North America, a job pursued vigorously until she was nearly 70, that entailed travel to some of Asia's most remote, inaccessible reaches." Oh, couldn't have summarized it better myself.
What a woman for the ages. I mean, it's so cool to just with that one little blurb here, you summarize the impactful legacy she's had. I mean, with being recognized by having, her own planet or a planet named after her really is a testament to what she left behind and how she impacted society after her untimely passing.
Absolutely. It's so true, because she really just did everything. And I think what's so cool to me is that it just goes to show, but I mean, we've been talking about this throughout a lot of the interviews and through all of this, is that, like, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one career, one lifestyle, one direction of your life, because she thought she was going one place, right? And then she was like, okay, I have to get back to Japan. How can I do this? I'm already studying languages and I know Japanese. Let's do this. And then coming back, I assume seeing the weariness probably of American citizens to be accepting of Japanese and Asian people after the war. I feel like she was like, what can I do? What do I love to do? I love the arts. Okay, let's talk to the people that my dad knows. Let's bring these people over here and show America that, like, it doesn't have to be scary. This can be a really amazing thing for everyone. And that is just so cool. That is so cool. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Thank you all so much for tuning in again. Joe came up with oh my gosh. I called you Joe.
That's, that's what they call me In my family.
That's weird.
My family circle. That's not my name.
Um,
I was never given a name.
I was never given her name. Well, Buzz over here, he and I were brainstorming a nickname for the listeners, and he came up with the best one. And you guys are Herstorians.
It's catchy. Has a nice ring to
right?
it.
It works. So thank you, Herstorians, so much for tuning in again. We love sharing these stories with you every week. Please subscribe, rate, and review. It takes 2 minutes, and it helps us grow. Come back this Friday for an interview with Miami-based producer, writer, all-around creative, Liz Gonzalez. In this interview, she talks about her most exciting projects that she never thought she would be on, including Drake's music video, God's Plan. Yeah. Emergency Drake.
Last name ever. First name.
Oh my gosh.
Aubrey.
Sometimes you gotta pull the emergency Drake. She also talks about forming her own production company called Anda Panda Productions, and she talks about Reiki healing, which is really cool.
That sounds exciting.
It's really awesome. So you guys make sure you come back for that.
Can I come back for that?
We'll see.
Cool. Okay.
Follow us on the social medias for some extra content every week. Instagram,
At Women of Her Story Podcast.
Twitter,
At the Her Story Pod.
visit our website at,
ofherstory.com.
or you can send us an email to
womenofherstorypodcast@gmail.com.
be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.
Bye. This is a New York Glitch production.